Hi, my name is Clay, and this is the Enneagram Prison Project podcast. In this episode, I sit down for a chat with EPP guide Laura Hooper. Now, you've heard from Laura before about her role as program manager for EPP, among other things, and this time around, we're going to chat more specifically about what it's like to do our programming on the inside. A quick side note, we recorded this on the back patio of the Airbnb where a few folks were gathered, and this was on a cold evening in January. So if you hear us referencing the temperature a time or two, just know that, first of all, we were outside in January. And second of all, it actually wasn't as cold. It really wasn't that chilly at all. It was quite pleasant outside. And of course we were outside. Why wouldn't we be? I don't know. It just made sense at the time. Laura is one of my favorite people to sit across from. I had a lot of fun with this conversation, and I hope you have fun listening to it. We're glad you're here. Thanks for listening. This is the Enneagram Prison Project podcast.
So I had pizza for dinner. Sorry. I am Laura Hooper. I am a huge fan of EPP. It is where I spend most of my time. But this week in particular is super exciting because we are in San Diego, and I now live in San Diego. And there is a prison here that is just beautiful. And they really partner with us. So this was the first, just today we graduated the first, myself as a guide inside of this particular prison. It was the first program we have done since I have lived in San Diego. So I was already feeling like this was the place I wanted to be. And today it was like, this is the place I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You have a few titles with EPP, I think, right?
Yeah.
What are some of those titles?
Guide.
Yeah.
And program manager. And kind of whatever needs done.
I think we talked before, we talked mostly from your program manager role. And by the way, I don't feel bad chasing a squirrel. Does that look like a heater to you?
It definitely looks like a heater to me.
Do you want to do we see where the wires run? Did you say your type, by the way?
I did not. I did on the I did on the last one. But as we look at squirrels, we might not even need to say my type.
Yeah. It's probably worth explaining what this place looks like. Describing, I think we've all decided that we agree that a type 7 owns this Airbnb.
They must.
And in case anybody didn't connect the dots, we were implying that you are also type 7.
Indeed, I am.
Is it worth describing the patio alone?
It is a place that you should hang out, and there is a lot going on. A lot of different directions, a lot of signs that are interesting.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, every inch that you look at, there's almost something that you could be like, I want to check that out a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of color. Yeah.
I'm looking at a sign that says, in case of fire, and it has a stick figure running from a flame. It says, in case of fire, freak out and run like hell.
Yeah.
I also see another picture where the text is written sideways so that you have to tilt your head 90 degrees to read it. And that sign says, you look really stupid with your head tilted like that.
That's not the end. There's a lot more.
What's up?
There's a sign in the bathroom. I forget everything that it says, but it says the normal, don't flush this, that, paper products, blah, blah. And then it also, it runs on, it says hopes and dreams.
Yeah. And also says puppies and kittens.
It does.
Please do not flush paper towels, any of this, any of that, blah, blah, blah. Puppies and kittens, hopes and dreams.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
Okay. All right. And action.
Yes. The rest is cut.
Maybe some of it, maybe not.
Maybe not.
So anyways, we're here in wonderful San Diego. We said the name of the prison earlier, but I think we'll have to bleep that out. I can't remember the rules around that. We can say where we are and then not say any names, or we can say not the place, and then we can say names. I don't remember which, so we'll just be vague on both.
Yep, that sounds good.
I don't know if names are all that important anyways.
Yeah.
But so the format for this class has been a little different. We were here last year, and we did a full week, a full intensive of like full day or full morning, full afternoon, and we did that for 5 days.
Yep.
This time we did it, or 4.5-ish plus graduation. This time we did it a wee bit different, but still the same idea. We just split it into 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, we were here on Thursday and Friday, full days from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon for Thursday and Friday. And we came back this week, Thursday and Friday.
Yep.
What did we do here? What the hell went down? And tell anybody anything that you can think of about that.
Well, we welcomed in close to 20 folks, 15 of which stayed for the entire course. And we journeyed through the entire EPP curriculum. 8 modules, about roughly 3 hours a module, give or take. We do like our flexibility, and you got to do that in the classroom.
So you're saying things get snipped here and there.
Sometimes, yes.
Or what's the word for the bonsai tree? What's the right word for that? Trimmed.
Trimmed. Yes. We make decisions of how will the bonsai look best.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, when you're in the classroom, it's, if you've got great conversation with folks looking at themselves and sharing what's going on and present, you're not going to, hurry up and get through that because we got to move on.
Right.
You give it the space it needs. So it's kind of the fun part of it is, how do I dance with whatever's here and adjust accordingly?
And it's probably easier to instead of saying 2 weeks ago and then this week and all that stuff, just in terms of like day 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And so this was a pretty talkative group. A lot of folks in this class were talkative. And how soon was it when you realized, oh, they're not just going to listen; they're going to talk? Well,
I have to say, when I have these kind of groups that are that, it is exciting. Yeah. It's like, but I would say with this group.
Okay, actually, can I pause real quick? And I want to ask why. What's so exciting about that as a teacher, as a guide who is on a time crunch already, and you're telling me that when they start talking, it's going to immediately throw your scheduling off. Things will have to be bonsai'd and all that stuff. What is exciting about that? Why is that where you go?
Well, I'm not. It's going to sound funny because you spend so much time in guide training and we want folks to deliver the curriculum, but I'm not there to fire hose comes to mind. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but I don't look at go in, fire hose, get every piece of this curriculum out. Like that isn't the goal for me. Me walking into a classroom is encourage people to come on this journey and fall in love with themselves. And that doesn't usually happen with the fire hose. It's usually they're starting to take things in and figure it out and piece things together. So when I feel that, and in this particular course, day 1 for sure, within an hour, like it was like, these folks are in. And I will say part of that is 6 of the folks had taken the course previously. So they already knew their Enneagram type and they have been working with it since we were here about 10 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. So that always helps so much. But like this, I knew day 1, like, oh, wow, we got quite a few talkers in here and they're ready. So, okay, it's going to keep me on my toes a little bit, but I'd much rather spend 4 days on my toes than 4 days. Just saying things and look at this in the book and do this. And so this is a much more, this is kind of the dream classroom.
I'm curious. So you talk about there's originally 20, it turned into 15. And I know a few of those were gone by the first break. One of them at least was gone before we even started. He walked in and said, I wasn't supposed to be here, or I don't want to be here, or whatever, and bounced. And I think if I'm just listening, if I'm just out there in podcast world and I'm listening, I'm wondering, is that normal? Like, do you normally start with 20 and end with 15, or is that?
I mean, start number varies for sure. But it's more common to have a few fall off than all of them to stay.
Is 75% pretty good, or is it reasonable, or is it?
It's
acceptable.
It's
attrition?
reasonable, and it depends on the institution. Like if it's a jail, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
If it's a prison, and we were in a prison this week, folks tend to be more grounded. They've been in longer. Like all of those things play into it. So I would say, and not completely, because I'm thinking of some other jails and prisons where I've had nobody quits. They're all in. So it's really all over the place. And I've had other ones where so many people get released and people drop that I finished one course. This was years ago with 2 people. So it varies. Yeah.
And you introduce the difference between, without even saying it, but implying that there's a difference between jail and prison. And it's brought up a lot on the podcast. And when it does get brought up, I always ask for clarity, or for clarification rather. What is the difference between jail and prison? Some folks don't know.
Yeah. So in the U.S., jails are, and jump in if I misspeak to this at all, please, but jails tend to be run by the county or a city. And most folks that are in jails, they either have very short sentences or they're awaiting trial. And their trial could be, yes, you're released. Their trial could also be you're going to prison. So there's a very different, even energetically, there's a different feel. It's not a settled place. It's not meant to be a settled place. And you can feel that when you walk in to hold a class.
Most people who are there were in the free world very recently.
Correct. And some might be in the free world very soon.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, it's not quite the right thing to say, but almost like one foot's still in the free world and one foot's not. So you can imagine how unsettling that can be of like, am I really here? Is this my life moving forward? Or am I about to be in prison, or am I about to go home? So it's not the same. I'm here. I'm facing years, or I've already been here years.
Do you sense higher levels of stress there?
I think there's more capacity generally in prison to hold the stress. I don't think the stress is more or less. I think being incarcerated and not being in the free world, and in a lot of ways having your dignity taken, your humanity, I don't know how it can't be stressful, even if you can't feel it every minute. But I think that there is a greater capacity to hold the stress and anxiety in prison than there is in jail.
And so then prison, to finish the rest of that description, is where folks are going to do time. They're there for 5 years, 10 years. Is she trying to make you laugh?
I think so. She wants to interrupt. This is the infamous.
She's coming out here.
Are you taking off?
No, we'll wait till you're done.
Okay. It's even better.
You gotta be fucking kidding me. All right. So, touche. Sam. That's hilarious. We're just outside the kitchen and we can see in the window. And I thought she was giving us the eye like I'm going to interrupt, which she did. But I thought it was to say bye, but she didn't. So prison is where folks are doing time. They've got their sentences, 5, 10, 20, 30.
Life without parole.
Life without parole. They're there. They are there for a while.
Yeah.
And just as an example, one of the guys in class today knows that he won't even be up for parole for another decade.
Yep.
And there are folks in that class who know that they don't have parole in their future.
Yeah.
And they're not getting out. So that is one of the many differences between jail and prison. Do you have a preference where you teach or where you guide?
I think if you asked me a while back, I would have said prison. I don't know that I feel that way anymore. They're different, but I really enjoy both. And I know that they're going to be different. I still think in any space you can make connection and invite folks into seeing like how great they are. So yeah, some classes are harder than others, but I like both. I've spent more of my EPP guiding hours have been in jail because of where I used to live. And now because of where I live, it's going to be more prison. And I will say, probably partially type structure here for me. I am looking forward to the change. Like I'm just looking forward to the shift and having more of that experience and just seeing and feeling all the differences.
Did you have any of that with this most recent class?
Any of
the change, the any of that, or just in general? What was this like? This class that we just graduated today.
This class was they dropped in immediately. Yeah. I mean, I was amazed. Even the first centering, not a peep in the room.
Right.
That's rare. Prison or jail.
Right.
That's just rare. It was a weird experience for me in that I've been doing some traveling and going different places and supporting programs. And so there's some part of me that knows, I drop in, I do this thing and I leave. And so there's not this one in particular felt like so connected for me. And so like, wait, this is my community. Like I am here. I'm going to be in this facility regularly and I'm going to see these folks. And even when I was in a jail weekly and constantly, there was so much churn of the residents that you didn't have that. And you mentioned that guy that awesome, who said, not awesome that'll be in 10 more years, but an awesome human. And I could feel in myself of like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be part of EPP and part of my life for a decade at least. And hopefully he's going to get out and be an ambassador and set the world on fire and do amazing things. But just there was something in me that I hadn't anticipated, and I'm pretty good at anticipation.
Right.
But this was just like, oh, this is home. Like, and so that felt pretty incredible.
You're going back soon and you can expect to see certain faces that were there this time. And I would be shocked if that fella wasn't one of them. Yeah. He's going to be around for a while. There's a few folks in there that are going to be around for a while.
Absolutely.
Both because, unfortunately, they have a lot of time. Unfortunate by my definition. I'm sure there are people who don't agree with that. That's fine. But they are going to be in there for a while, and you're going to be going there for a while. So you're going to be seeing them for a while, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's thrilling, honestly. I could see, and we talked about this, we could see the shift in a couple of the folks that had been in the class, big shifts in several months.
Yeah.
Like I see the shifts in me since I've been part of EPP community over the past several years. And it's like, it's not just me. This is the collective. This is what we do in community. And I get to be in community visibly with these folks. And that is, lights me up, to say the least.
Anything happened in this class that was good? Actually, that final question fits perfect here. Was there anything surprising and positive? What is a surprising and positive truth? And the closing question that we had for that, was it this morning?
It was this afternoon.
Where the question was, what was a surprising and positive truth that you learned about yourself during this course? So I'll ask you, not necessarily about yourself, although obviously you can definitely answer that, but what is a surprising and positive truth that you learned about this class throughout the course?
It's interesting because in one way it's very surprising, and another way it's not. I have been around enough to see that folks get what we're up to and want this curriculum and want to heal themselves, and the beauty of watching that happen. And also for me, I love that we're there to guide, but it is on each person to choose to take this journey. And when they choose, it's unbelievable. But I knew there was hunger in this facility, but the amount and the depth and the willingness, it blew me away. Like, it was when we were leaving today, we were kind of winding down the class, and just when are you coming back? How do I get in this class? And we had
that's what the men in class were asking.
Correct. And we had a recreational therapist and us supporting on some things in for the entire time. And I don't know how many of them were going to her and saying, how do I get on this list? I have to be in this class. And
it was enough that she said, hey, holler at me on Monday because I'm kind of busy.
Yeah. And then when I said April, it was like, great. And then the other part, we got to wait till April. Yeah. And it's like, just that this is not easy. Right. There were tears in class. You could probably talk to half the class that when they sat on the panel to explore their type or types they were trying out, were all but shaking and just vulnerable and scared. And yet there's something that keeps them coming and wanting this and wanting to know themselves. And so while in one way I know that that's the case a fair amount, it's also shocking to me because it's like, man, there's half the time I want to run away from the work because it doesn't feel good and I'm shaking in it and like, can I hold all of this? And then I get in a space like that and it's like, oh yeah, like we're all hungry for this. We're all hungry to be more conscious, all hungry to actually get to know ourselves. And it's like, it surprises me. And then it turns around on itself too. And is like, it feeds me in that way of like, yeah, I want to get to know myself more. I actually don't want to throw in the towel of this journey that is beautiful and Really hard.
Yeah. An unpleasant question that comes to mind that somebody might wonder out there in the world is, what is the point if, talking about the guy he's going to be there a minimum of a decade before he's up for parole. And we talk about folks who don't have parole and the whole range in between that. And I'm convinced that there are people who, even if they don't have the nerve or the desire to just sit up and ask this question, I think they often wonder, what's the point? You're in prison, dude. What are you going to do with this? If you learn this, big whoop-de-doo, you're still in prison. What do you say to that?
Couple different answers. I mean, the quick one is the person could get out. They could be your neighbor. They could be in your, friends, family, neighborhood. I want them to be a great neighbor, right? So that's the easy answer. But the bigger answer for me is I want them to know why they got there, how they got there, and how they heal. The more and more I do this work, the more the trauma that most folks that are incarcerated have experienced is unbelievable. And for me, I sit back and where were we as a society? Why don't we know this is happening, and why aren't we fixing it? And why aren't we helping people? If I had to live through what a lot of folks that I come in contact with did, I honestly can't imagine it. If the truth of it, I honestly can't imagine it. And it's so unfair. And
what kind of stuff are we talking about?
I'm talking about adverse childhood experiences. I'm talking about being beaten as children, family members in prison, being raped or molested as children. And the list goes on, and some of it's absolutely horrific. Or being put in a home as a toddler and never really knowing your family because your parents are in so much pain they can't care for you. And then we're shocked that people end up in prison. So for me, we can do better as humans. I would love to fix everything. I would love to be part of fixing everything. I don't know how to do that. And sometimes I get quite overwhelmed with all that I'm doing is a course at a time. But that's what's in front of me in this moment. And that's what I love. And I know when someone can see the goodness in themselves and fall in love with themselves, everything in their orbit changes. So
it's funny you say that about orbit, because the thought that was kind of already bouncing around in my head that is even more clear now is even a guy who isn't getting out, a man or a woman or anybody else who's not getting out, they still have influence on the people around him or around them, or as you say, in their orbit. And the idea of that positive influence. So just take 6 random people. Inmates 1, 2, 3 aren't getting out. Inmates 4, 5, 6 are. It doesn't seem like a bad idea for 1, 2, and 3 to help 4, 5, and 6 who are possibly getting out.
Yeah. I shouldn't go to prison and get worse.
Right.
I mean,
which happens
a lot.
That's common.
And I think of myself, I don't know how I would be if I were incarcerated, but it wouldn't be good. Yeah. I wouldn't know how to function. I would figure it out. We're humans. We adapt. I get that. But it's also, I can look at it and say, it's not a place that if I had gotten myself in all kinds of trouble that landed me there, it's not set up in a place that I can heal and get through that and figure out why did that happen and how do I heal myself, actually rehabilitate so that then I can be part of society. I see that, yes, in our classrooms, but as the whole, I don't see that being the function of prison. And what you're pointing to is if inmate 1, 2, 3, and the other 3 aren't getting out, 3 are, 3 aren't, I want all 6 of them to be doing well.
Yeah. Because
it's a huge impact on the world, on globally. So I guess that's where I kind of zoom out and think, whatever transpires in 24 hours in the classroom that we have, it's putting goodness in the world. And that's what I want to do with my life. So,
yeah, I like that. I'm going to pause real quick just to make sure we're still comfortable enough to keep talking. Are you okay?
I am.
Okay.
I'm a little closer to the warmth than you. Okay.
This jacket is warm, and I have shoes on now to where my socks are not touching the cold, hard ground.
Same.
I'm pretty insulated.
Yeah.
So I'm good to go. with it being apparently 40 degrees.
Yeah, it's probably like 75. I'm gonna go look at my phone and be like, oh, it's 75, and I'm shivering.
It might even be in the 60s, but it's an easy 20 degrees.
Yeah,
it's a comfortable 20 degrees,
and it's dark, so the sun is not out. It's dark,
and there's no wind.
No,
so that also helps. And I tried as best as I could to close this movie curtain. I wish we could describe what we're looking at and where we're sitting on this patio, but I think that I don't have enough adjectives for that. But it's an unusual place. Anyways, back to prison and where we were for this most recent class that we graduated today. A couple weeks ago, we were here, and it was Alex wasn't able to come. There was a bit of things happen.
Yes, they do, and
that's often a phrase that we use when we don't want to say other things. But he couldn't come, and then this time he could. This week he's here for day 3 and day 4. What's it like having an ambassador in the room with you as you guide?
Well, I've never had it for quite this length of time before. I've had bits and pieces. And even with Renee, he and I did something that was like kind of in custody, like transitional type stuff.
Yeah.
But I've never had an ambassador in the room with me like this in person for an entire course. I loved it. Oh my gosh. One, selfishly, beyond the classroom, it's like there's this whole extra holding like that I felt from you and Alex both of just like, we are doing this together. Like, not that I felt
you got your partners with you.
Yeah. It just felt so shoulder to shoulder. Like we're, just so aligned on why we're here. And so that feels amazing. And I love that is like my favorite time to look around the room when either one of you speak. And just watching all the participants, all the residents, yes, they listen to me because I can be loud and engaging and all of those things.
And because you're great, by the way, I'll say that. I'll add that piece that you're not adding yourself. You're very good.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm just going to receive that. Thank you.
Yeah.
But man, it's just a whole different, I can't speak to what you can speak to. And yes, we both choose to go into prison on our own accord. We want to be there, but I've never not been able to leave. You have been in that spot. Alex has been in that spot, and you have chosen to go back in. And it just, every time blows me away. And it's just, I talk about both of you so much when you're not in the room. It's so funny to now have you in the room. Even when I'm teaching type 5, it's like, well, wait, Clay's here. And I usually talk all about Clay. So, yeah. But it feels amazing and right and natural. And I can't even put all the words there because it's almost like there's a puzzle piece that fit together and it's like, duh.
Yeah.
Like, of course this feels better all around. Better for me, better for the participants, hopefully better for the two of you. Feels like it, it's just right.
Yeah. You reminded me of something that happened when you were doing the overview for type 5. And it was well done. You were talking through all the points. You start off as we do with the good side of 5 and what we love about 5. And part of that is strategy. Part of it is just a good idea. But if somebody's in there who doesn't know their type and they might be a type 5, if you start with that, this is why I love type 5. It's easier for them to say, okay, maybe that is me. And then, yes, you do go through, not you specifically, but all of us when we're talking about the different types, you eventually get to the stuff that's not fun. But by that point, you already heard all the good stuff and it's easy to accept maybe that is me. And as you were talking about type 5, I was just listening and frankly, just listening as another participant in class. And then at the end of it, I should have known this was coming because it always does. It's how it works. You said, hey, so Clay, is there anything you would add about 5? I don't remember what I said, but I remember thinking, like, I don't fucking know. Like everything you're saying is like you're doing. I was thinking that you were doing such a great job, and I wasn't even listening for things to be missing. It was just like I feel represented. I feel like you're saying all the good stuff well. I feel like you're representing the things that are struggles for me well. And it caught me off guard. It really. I hope I hid that somewhat well. But I don't feel like I did. But do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. You did hide it, but I'm like, my face, like I can't even not smile if I wanted to, because that means the world to me, because I know that you're not saying that unless you mean it. And so
I would say the opposite if the opposite happens.
Yes.
I might even interrupt you in class to go, actually hold the phone
Yes.
just for a second, please.
Yeah.
So I totally didn't do that because that wasn't the case.
Thank you.
What did I say? I don't even know.
I know you spoke about the generosity at one point. You did say it did. When I knew I caught you a little off guard, it wasn't just because I know you. You said you kind of like, nope, that was really good. And then you said something. It might have been generosity.
Yeah. But even that was something that you said. I was just reiterating how I felt, how it hit me, and then I might have expanded or double clicked, as we say sometimes.
Yeah.
How I related to that. It's 10 degrees out here. I can't talk.
Same temperature.
Yeah, sure, fine. But anyways, yeah, I was totally caught off guard, and not in I wasn't zoned out. I was just like, I was listening. I was there to hear what you were saying about type 5. It feels really good to watch someone represent my type well. It feels, I don't know. I get maybe other types feel this, but I feel like for me, I feel like folks don't always understand 5 all that great. Mm-hmm. And it's so nice when someone who's not a 5 or even if they are a 5, but I expect it if they are a 5. But someone who's not a 5 just represent. Feels good.
Yeah. And that's what we want everyone to feel about every type, because it's so funny because I would say this and I meant it, but now like I feel it. Like every type is amazing.
Hey y'all, it's Clay, and I wanted to take a break here in the conversation with Laura to share with you a segment that we call our Words of Appreciation. Now, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a time where we pause and we pick someone within the organization and just tell you all the different things that we like about them, love about them, are grateful for, all the things that we appreciate about them. And this time around, I want to tell you about Sue Lambert. Now, Sue is an EPP guide. She's also a faculty member. She's an ambassador for the Enneagram Prison Project. And as is usually the case, she does many other things within the organization. Now, I sat down recently with Sue and, well, I won't spoil it, but I'll say that we recorded for a good 2 hours, a nice conversation that you're going to hear on episode 1 of season 3 of this podcast, which is going to be in about, 6 weeks or so. And one of the things that I appreciate above all else about Sue is her willingness to do the work. And I'll abbreviate here and you'll hear more about it later on the episode with her. But I admire, I appreciate the willingness that I believe Sue has in seeing where work needs to happen and then having the courage to take that step forward and do something about it. And I think that is a trait that we could all benefit from. And so I appreciate that about her. And also, with a few more words of appreciation, here are a few other folks who have something to say on this as well.
Hi, Sue. This is Dustin. I just really want to say how much I appreciate you and everything and all the spaces you're in. And it's been such a joy to have you in my life and be such a huge, impactful part of my journey in EPP and my growth as an ambassador. I'm sending you so much love and appreciation.
I appreciate Sue's sense of humor and her guiding style and her grace and patience in we do the work together conversations. I feel like I've learned so much from her because those conversations have never come easy to me. And it's been a pleasure to watch Sue from her earliest apprenticeship in San Bruno jail, where we were getting lost in the halls and the deputies were trying to tell us through the microphones and hidden speakers in the walls how to get out of the building at 7:30 at night, to now where she's training apprentices every single round. And all of us are learning from how she works with apprentices and works with other guides and how she works with participants. So I am grateful for Sue. I'm grateful for what I've learned and continue to learn from Sue. Grateful for Sue's sense of humor. And I'm grateful for how Sue bees. Sue, I love you.
There are so many Sue, Susan, Susie, Suzannes in this project, and I think we all are reflecting an aspect of each other to the whole. And Sue Lambert is the part of me that knows what we are doing is absolutely possible. I remember meeting her on the inside, feeling the hope in her that really mirrored the hope in me. And my God, if anyone has taken this curriculum all the way into themselves, it's this shining ambassador. I love you, Sue, for all you do and be, and for the integrity with which you do it, for doing the real work when things get extra hard, and for staying the course and taking this thing all the way.
Sue, these words are for you. You are so dear to me. You were my peep when I did my GTP. And the words that come to mind for me are wisdom, strength, light, and love. I remember when I was apprenticing, I had to teach the defense mechanisms and had a panic attack. And late, in the night, I was reading my manual and preparing myself. And I sent you an email just telling you how I felt. And not sure whether I'd, receive a reply, not necessarily asking for something, but just writing to you made me feel so good and relaxed my tight belly. And lo and behold, the next morning, I received your email. And I still read that email sometimes when my heart sinks and I'm doubting and things get difficult. So Sue does have such a special way with words. It's like a voice in my head, that says, "You're okay, you'll be fine." And for once, I actually believe them. And that's, it's just inside, it feels like an empowering glow. And it's a kind of undefinable quality of love that I receive. Whenever I reach out to Sue, there's always a response. I'm so, so lucky to be walking by your side in this project.
If you were put on the spot right now, aka you're about to be put on the spot, could you tell me something that you loved about each type?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay, go around. Start with 8, just because that's how we usually do it. Or in any order.
Type 8, it is the aliveness. It is the, we are on this earth for a finite amount of time. Let's live. I love when there's 8s around me that stir that up in me. It's like, yes, there is purpose. Type 9s, I used to actually get, I don't know if jealous is the word, but that energy, that just, there's not, when it's at its best, it's not even trying, but it's this there is this knowing everybody belongs and everybody matters and just peace with that. I look at it sometimes and feel it and I'm like, oh, thank you for that. And I have a bias for type 1. My partner's type 1. Just the goodness. And these are the things we often say, but I feel it. Even on the rough days, there is just this goodness in him, in everyone. And this week we had 2 1s in class that, you could just you could feel the goodness. It was amazing. Type 2, I am so lucky to have type 2s in my life. And probably the most important person that was in my life was my dad. And he taught me unconditional love that's as close to humanly possible. And I think that's the gift of type 2. And I don't want to live in a world where that doesn't exist. Type 3, and it's so funny as I do this, I picture these different folks in my life, but type 3s, I feel like for me, and I know it might sound similar to 7, but it's a different flavor. It's a very, anything is possible, and there's so much hope, and just existing is so valuable. And I need reminded of that all the time. And type 4s, I used to struggle with type 4s. I used to really not understand, like, why would you stay with the heavy? Like, why would you choose is what it felt like to me. And now I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God you stay with the heavy. And you help me see, like, I mean, you heard me this week talk about some pretty deep sadness. And now I'm so thankful because the richness and the joy that balances that out, like I couldn't actually have the richness if I couldn't have that. And I couldn't have real heartbreak if I didn't have real love. And I don't know that I could have learned that on my own. I'm actually pretty certain I couldn't have. And so type 4s really helped me with that. Type 5s, well, you're sitting in front of me. This is going to sound, it's a simple example, but you and I have talked about, I don't have great boundaries sometimes. And I have struggled with overwhelm and different things. And these aren't new patterns. It's not just where I find myself this moment. This is life for me. And the simple things like you just said, don't do it. Like remove that app from your phone so you can't do it.
Wait, that's an actual thing that happened.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so interesting to me because it's like, in the moment, it's like, oh, that makes sense. But then like, I think about it a little bit later and it's like that clarity, like, yes, for you, I'm sure that feels like, of course, but I can't see it. And so I feel like type 5s just, they often show me the thing that's right in front of my face, but for some reason I can't see it. It's the same when I read the wisdom of the Enneagram. I'm like, this stuff I know, but I couldn't put it on the pages like this. So thank you. Thank you for that. 6s, we talked about type 6 in class today, and even sitting on the panel that we had, you could see the anxiety of being in front of the room. And the very first person that sat down, he's like, man, what all could go wrong sitting on panel? He kind of said it under his breath and I heard it, but it is like, how do you move forward when you have all of that going on? That is real courage. I move forward, but a lot of times there's not all this stuff that's churning in me of what could go wrong. Sometimes, yes, but it's not a normal. And so I am forever amazed at the courage and the like, we're doing this and we're moving forward. And eyes are wide open. And I know things could go terribly wrong and I'm in. And then type 7, which is the type I struggle with most, which is interesting, right? But there is a real joy. I'm grateful to be. I'm grateful that's where I live. And yes, my struggles are, but I'm grateful that's where I live because even in my darkest times, which some of those have been relatively recent, there's still something in me that has joy and is just still amazed at like, how did I get to be on this earth? And just what could be possible. And yeah, so yeah, I love them all.
Piece of cake.
I love them all.
You passed. It's a good demonstration for what I think we need to. I don't like to use words like succeed, but what we need to be able to do the work is to be able to go through the types and go, this is what's good about. I don't know that I could do that on the spot like that. I would have to attach a person to each type and then say what I like about that person. So for 8, I would talk probably about Halita and why, and then 9, and then all the way around the Enneagram. And I will admit that I struggle with starting off with all the things that I love about each type. I'm impressed that you could do that just on the spot. Of course you can. I expected you to be able to. And also I still find it quite a bit impressive. And there's also people who listen to the podcast. I just know this is how it works, who are new enough in their journey to where that serves as a mini lesson to them. And they will connect with that. Yeah. And I didn't know that early on with the podcast of how it worked and who listened for what reasons and all this other stuff. And then I started getting feedback from folks. And so on behalf of the folks who will hear that and it will help them, I'll just say thanks for running through that. That was fun.
That was fun. And it's funny because I can feel a shift. Like when I first started guiding, I could have gone down a list and I liked the types, but it's now they're like in me, and I really love, I mean, even in the classroom when we have folks that I struggle with, I still have my own biases. That has not gone away, but like, I just love them. Like it really is. It's in there now, and I swim in it, and it's pretty fun to actually swim in love. I mean, it's like, actually sign me up. That sounds pretty great.
Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? That's hilarious. And I can't get this Slack thing out of my head, so I'm just going to bring it up and finish telling that little tiny piece.
I even just said an app. I didn't even say Slack.
Well, so many of our folks in the EPP verse, they use Slack, and so I don't even remember why I suggested this to you, but I remember there was something about on the weekends and being. It's the tech thing where tech gets in the way of us enjoying our time away. Yeah. And I don't remember why it got brought up. I do remember saying, just delete it. I delete mine on Friday. Slack, talking about Slack on my phone. I delete it Friday night-ish, and then I reinstall it on Monday. And anyways, so that's the app.
Yeah, that was, it sounds so small, but it was a huge help for me and has been. Yeah.
I don't even know. I might have even thrown it. It was one of those things that I might have thrown out there as a joke / actual suggestion to where if you were like, no, I'm not doing that, I could go, but at least it's funny. But it actually stuck.
Yeah, it did. I don't remember. It wasn't like you were coaching me. Here's your steps, Laura. But the way you said it, it was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And for some reason for me, I couldn't. You didn't give me permission, but in a sense you did. It was an interesting, but that's that.
You gave me an idea and then you gave yourself permission.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. All right. So we went around I love getting sidetracked. Of course we get sidetracked. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah. Shocking.
I do want to go back to prison. I mean, not literally because it's like 9 or 10 on
Stop
Friday.
the podcast.
Yeah.
We need intervention. You're not going back to prison, Clay.
I chose the wrong words. The right words, but anyways. Go back into prison, talking about the classes. Today we graduated. You said we graduated how many?
15.
And that was, of the 5 who didn't stay, most of those were out super, super soon. Mm-hmm. So it, like people got halfway through and quit.
Nope.
Out of the 15, how many were first timers?
9. And
there were 6 second timers.
Correct.
It's a rather impressive number.
Very.
Yeah.
Very.
You did something. We talked about this earlier. Actually, I was talking to Suzanne and Mike. And did you see, and of course I know her name, but we don't use names, unfortunately. I hate that that's a rule, but it is what it is. But the chief of mental health was in the room with us. Did you see that she had tears in her eyes?
I did not. I was so focused on the participants, but I was so glad to hear that afterwards.
There's a room of 15 men graduating the class. And as you called out their name, in one way, it's the standard graduation process where you hold a certificate, you say their name, they come up, you hand them the certificate. They go through this line of people whose hands to shake. So they shook your hand, Suzanne, Alex, me, Mike, and then to the chief of mental health, and then another doctor.
Chief of psychology.
Try that again. This is why we edit. I can edit
the
shit
right
out of that.
The first time.
Yeah, I know. But it's 0 degrees over here, right? Chief of psychology. So bigwigs at the prison, I think.
Yeah.
And shook their hands. And what was so impressive about this, that's a normal process, normal progress, however you want to, whatever that is, that's normal. What's not normal is every single person that came up there, you had something to say to them. And it wasn't like, hey, great job. I believe in you. Good luck. It was very so specific that I won't even try to remember and recreate what you said. But you were speaking to their specific life. And I saw this in you. I saw that in you. And I think that is where Doc was touched. What the hell? Where does that come from?
I love them. I see I see so much goodness in them. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting emotional about it, and I honestly can't put it all into words, but in those spaces, in those rooms, we all find a way to connect at a level that is sacred. I don't know what else to say other than I feel them seeing my goodness. I see their goodness. It's like this, it's almost this, like, yes, it's reciprocity, but it's this, I cannot put all of it into words, but there were so many men in that room this week that shared such deep things. And some of them for the first time ever, like, have said, I've never had this kind of conversation with a man. I've never been vulnerable in a space like this. And yet they stay. And yes, I shake in my shoes to some extent, right? Like I'm in this space and got to hold the space. But I feel like my shaking in my shoes is nothing compared to what these folks are doing in the space that they are forced to live in and the lives that they've led up to this point. Like, just, I'm touched. I'm amazed that I get to experience that much. I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but it's, I was a little nervous because I wanted to say something about each one. And I just took a breath and trusted the right words would come, because I can see into them and I know that they can see into me in a way. And I was just there, and I wanted them to be seen. I wanted them to know all of the work they've put in over the past 2 weeks, because it's a lot of work, not just in the classroom. And I saw them and I wanted them to know that I saw them. And that's what those exchanges were about. I wanted them to leave knowing, if you're not seen for another 5 or 10 years, you were seen today, you were seen in this classroom, and you are good.
It was unbelievable. It was clear, at least I think it was clear. And if I got fooled on this, then you're better than I thought. I think it was clear that none of that was written or rehearsed. Mm-mm. And that it was just dudes walking up. They stood in front of you. You didn't give them the certificate yet. And then you just spoke to their soul and to the truth of who they are and where they were in that moment. It's a trip. That's pretty badass.
It was scary.
I bet. I can imagine. And I actually remember thinking, excuse me, I remember thinking a few of those, it's I don't want to say it's easy, but for example, the 1-7 who just he lightens every room that he walks into. It's an easy thing to say, and it doesn't take away from the bigness of it or anything else, but everybody experiences that. And it's easy to say, and that's not what you said. For me, what I would say is, like, you brighten every room you walk into, and I love it. And thank you for being here. And in the moment, I could come up with that immediately, because that's what I experience him as every time he walks in the room. And then there's some other ones where it's like, you talk too much. You interrupt the class. Like, that's what the first thing that comes to mind. And so I have to fight through that to get to the big thing, the thing that's big for them. And you nailed it. 15 out of 15.
Thank you. That was it. I had to take several breaths, because I just thought, when it's, to me, this is where my head, right? You get this. Yeah. You're in that head center with me. What if I do the first 5 and I get those, and then I lose it and I hurt the other 10, or not hurt, but they see, why'd you say great things to this person? Mm-hmm. And you couldn't say it to me, So, yeah, I will say I've had a very good teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I think her name is Susan.
It's funny because you say that, and obviously we're joking, but the thought that was in my mind as you were talking just a second ago, I was thinking that's pretty gangster. That's a pretty gangster move to just like you said, what if I say something to the first 5 and then hurt the last 10? And I'm thinking that's a pretty gangster move. And that's something that we, in the early days of EPP, Vic and Alex and I would frequently say, and Elam too. I don't want to leave him out because he was part of those conversations. A lot of folks don't know Elam, but I do. We would say that Susan is just straight up gangster about stuff. And it's a term of endearment.
Yeah.
It means something very good from where we're saying it. And that was pretty gangster. So
well, thanks.
I'm glad you did that. I'm glad that they got to experience that. Some of those dudes have never experienced stuff like that. It's always been, quit fucking up. What's wrong with you? Can't you just do one thing right? Like, that's so normal that it doesn't even it may not even sting anymore when people say stuff like that to them. So kudos. Anything else from today? We talked with I talked with Suzanne and Mike about their experiences and it was Mike's first time going in, and it was like he'd been there a million times. And there were some things that were new, obviously, but his first experience was a good one. And anything else from this class that you want to share, or even beyond the class?
So interesting. Each class is so different. I keep feeling, and it is literally with each class, especially recently, and I felt it today, and I don't know if it's because we're in San Diego and now I'm here and not as located with, a local EPP community, but I felt so much of EPP, all the different people, all the different hands in the room, and that keeps growing in me. And that, like, whoever's listening to this podcast, you're part of this. I feel you. You are in this room with us. You are part of this project, and it's really awesome. Like, we are all doing really good work, and we're healing ourselves, and we're helping other people learn to heal themselves. And I'm still amazed. How did I get in this spot? How do I get to actually do this? So thank you to everybody listening to this podcast. Like, thank you for coming in with me. Thank you for making this possible, because it is something I didn't know I would get to experience in my life. And now I wouldn't know how to live without experiencing it.
So obviously there's at least one person, we'll just pretend, who's sitting there and they're like, gosh, he makes it sound so appealing and so fun, and I got to get involved. I want to be a part of that. To that person, what do you say? Even down to the technically who to call or whatever to do.
Yeah. I don't have an ABC. Here's what you do. It doesn't work quite like that.
Well, shit.
Sorry. I can think of people who have jumped right in different spots and like, whoop, I'm in, I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try this path, and that's not it. I'm going to move over here. I would say find a way to roam the halls, find a way to show up in spaces, see what we're up to. And if it's not this space, this community, find a place where you can really do your work, and where you can, it's the big three we say, but it is, I couldn't go into a classroom if I didn't do it and practice it. I'm not perfect at any of it, but self-observation, self-regulation, self-compassion. If you don't have a place where you can practice that with others, find it, seek it out. Maybe it's EPP, maybe it's elsewhere, but regardless, like, just find that place. You can't do this alone. It's never going to end. I don't think I'm going to get there. I keep hoping, but find a place where you can really practice those things and get to know you. And then, yeah, that doesn't really answer your question.
It totally answers the question. What are you talking about?
But it's not like email. Here's my email address. No. Email EPP. It's because it's so much more than that. It's not. Yeah. It's not just can I come and volunteer and hand out cookies for an hour? Like that's just not what we're up to. And don't get me wrong, handing out cookies is beautiful, but like I like cookies, but like I can't give people this very easy way because it's more than that.
I like to ask the ridiculously simple questions that have no real simple answers. And I think you nailed it. That's perfect. That's awesome. It's nothing further, Your Honor. That's all I got. I think, which is usually I start with, you have the right to remain silent. That would have worked perfectly there. It's now negative 10 degrees, but that's not the real reason I'm wrapping up. It's been about an hour. I appreciate you sitting in front of me and talking with me, and talking to the folks out there in EPP land. I want to give you the last word, of course, with no question, no prompt, just whatever you feel like saying. First, again, I thank you for everything. I really am bummed out to be leaving tomorrow. I'm flying to San Jose, so it's a little easier to land there because of who's there. I'm going to miss being here and going into prison with you. I've really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed being in the class with you quite a bit. And I mean this when I say I think you're a rock star. I think you're really, really good. And the dudes here in San Diego are so fortunate to have you. And there's a lot of people who probably could be here, and you're the best for it. And that's my opinion. I don't speak on behalf of anybody else, but that is my opinion. And that's the person who's talking right now. So I'm grateful that you will be getting to go back regularly and seeing them. You're going to go back in 4 or 5 more times this year?
Yep, 5.
And holy hell, that's just the best. So with that, I'll shut up, turn my mic off, and turn it over to you. And anything you want to say, whether it's about this weekend or this week or anything else beyond that, the floor is yours.
Well, what's coming up for me in the moment is thank you. Thanks for calling Susan when you got out. Thanks for being in the classroom. Just thanks for being you is really what I want to say. It's actually been a pretty rough couple weeks. And when I sit in that classroom, I see a whole bunch of potential Clays, different versions. But I think when you're in the classroom, they see it. And I can't say enough about how much it means to me that you're here. And I mean here in this moment, but here. And yeah, I appreciate you so much. I wasn't supposed to cry.
For more information about EPP, please visit EnneagramPrisonProject.org. We appreciate your time and attention today. Stay tuned for future episodes of the podcast, which you can expect on the first Tuesday of every month as we continue to tell the story of the Enneagram Prison Project.